Welcome to Through the Drama. Chris Harrison and Lauren Zima coming to you from the home office in Austin, Texas. Day 2 of this great experiment, LZ. It's going to be a scorching hot week here in Austin, Texas, by the way.
Is this true what you told me? By the way, Chris, kind of a weatherman. I mean, got his start in local sports broadcasting. I think you always wanted to be a weatherman.
At some point in a man's life, you start over caring about weather, World War II, and documentaries. It's happened. It has happened. I've become my father. I don't know.
Is that the inner protector in you of your family?
Yes.
You need to know the weather and the state of conflict?
Yeah, because I think you also get to an age where you realize physically you really can't protect anybody. So you've come to terms with that in your life. So you're like, well, I can have a weather app.
Babe, you're strong.
I can have a weather app.
So is it true what you told me, weatherman, that it is potentially going to be the hottest place in the world to be in Austin, Texas?
Today, Tuesday, we're going to get into triple digits. Tomorrow, if it gets above 104, and they're expecting it to, it will be the hottest day ever in the history of May in Austin, Texas. And we will be one of the hottest places on earth. There will be some places in the Sahara Desert that are hotter. Then there's Austin, Texas, and it's May. I don't know. It is
goodbye. Why did you move me here?
Yes.
Goodbye. No, I love Austin. We want to start off today with a segment we will often do on the show, which is called What Kept Us Up Last Night. The chatter that you have as your partner, and there's one in every relationship, one person who's about to blissfully slip off into slumber, and the other, who is me, who is staying awake for another 2 hours worrying about a variety of non-essential things.
And what's interesting, so what kept us up last night is actually this show. And as we were dissecting this show, as Lauren and I are both journalists and we can never leave this stuff alone, we were going on and on about the show day 1 yesterday. And by the way, thank you. Whether you're watching on Merit TV or listening via the app, we had some great responses on the podcast and the show yesterday. So thank you. We are so grateful you're here. But we break this show down like it's game film in the NFL. And it was very interesting. What we learned is that maybe it's just us, but men and women definitely look at success, business, and things in our lives very differently.
Well, you're making this very broad. Are we going to talk about how we look at business differently? This is too big.
Well, just successes.
Let's narrow it down to
compliments and successes in our lives.
So we got a lot of compliments yesterday on the show, friends and family. Some of you guys, thank you. I cannot process the compliments. I'm like, thanks. Some people I didn't respond to. I'll call myself out now. I don't know why. I can't take the compliment in. I just keep pushing forward, and you are different. How are you?
I'm an eternal optimist. And it's not that there's always, everything goes right all the time, but I look at more of I think we described it last night as a hunter-gatherer conquest type of thing, where yesterday was more of a competition and you win the day. And then you move forward to today and you win the day. And again, there's ups and downs and you trip over hurdles from time to time. But you were almost depressed last night after what was a very successful day for us. And I was having trouble as a man, as a husband, computing this and digesting, okay, why is my wife depressed after what was an amazing day?
I think that I'm not going to feel good unless I feel like it is 100% amazing. That's how I am. And I don't, I don't tell people about anything I'm working on until it's done and dusted and complete and like perfect. And then I might mention it. I deflect a lot. If my friends ask me how I am, maybe it's an interviewer thing. I'm used to asking other people questions, but I deflect. I don't talk about what I have going on. Or maybe women are just more humble.
That's true. Maybe I'm just arrogant and a narcissist. No. But, I heard something a long time ago. I used to coach my kids in youth soccer, and I coached my son and then coached my daughter's team the same way. And I realized you can't do that. And someone taught me this amazing bit of wisdom, and I live by it today. And it is the boys needed to play good to feel good. And my girls' team needed to feel good in order to play good. And it really struck me because, at first I coached my kids kind of like I was coached, fire and brimstone and let's go and, let's run through that wall. And the boys kind of responded to that. Mm-hmm. My daughter would break down into tears. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I need to approach this a different way.
I'm definitely
and that's
not
where I learned, okay, women often need to feel good in order to play good.
I'm definitely not driven by competition the way that you are. Yeah. You are for sure like, it's a little more of a comparison and am I winning thing versus I am, what was the quality of what I did and do I feel good about what I did? And I know we both, I mean, I'm a little competitive and you obviously care about quality, but if we're talking about what really is driving us, I want to give a shout out to our friend Sarah, because here's the thing, women understand. We went out to dinner with our friends and I get in the car and our friends Sarah and Sean are like, congratulations. And I said, I'm kind of depressed. And Sarah goes, immediately, she diagnosed me in 10 seconds. She goes, oh, you're in fight or flight mode. You're taking on too much. You're doing too much. You're disassociating right now. You don't even know how to process anything. And you're probably not calling or texting people back. I said, oh my God. I mean, I just got smacked in the face with understanding.
Broken down in 2 seconds. So we're going to work on that. Great job yesterday. You look beautiful.
I have to
go. When we come back, we're going to take you through a little news. Huge day yesterday. The Diddy trial started in New York. We're going to bring on Loni Coombs, the co-anchor at Merit News, also former criminal prosecutor. So much happened already in day one. Day two getting underway right now in New York City. So when we come back, we're going to visit with Loni Coombs and go over what is taking place in the Diddy trial.
Welcome back to Through the Drama. The Diddy trial began yesterday, Monday, and this trial captivates, I think, people across generations. This man is a man who's been famous as a singer, actor, producer for decades, and was fairly beloved. I mean, cameos in movies. He went out and did political ad campaigns for different candidates. He was known as actually a charitable, much beloved, party-throwing celebrity.
Yes.
And now all that has changed. And he is on trial, facing years in prison, accused of horrendous crimes. And that first day in court, some major bombs were dropped. So we wanted to bring in a legal expert to talk us through all this. Please welcome from Merit News, one of our co-anchors and a former criminal prosecutor herself, Miss Loni Coombs. Hi, Loni.
Hey, you guys. First, I have to say congratulations on the show.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the Merit family. We're all so excited to have you guys. So fun. And you're doing a great job. Really excited to have you guys. Thank
you for joining us and talking about this trial, which really got going in earnest yesterday with opening statements. Diddy is up for sex trafficking, racketeering, transportation to engage in prostitution, among other counts. And the prosecution dove right in yesterday. And this is, if people weren't prepared for how raw, vulgar, brutal this trial is going to be, get ready. Because yesterday, if it was any indication, this is going to be a very rough trial for people to watch and listen to.
That's right. And it's important to understand that it has to be done this way. You know, I was a criminal prosecutor. I put on cases like this. You have to get into the nitty gritty, the graphic detail. These jurors were told about that during the jury selection. If they can't handle it, then they were taken off the jury. I don't know that the public was quite ready for all the graphic detail. And even the media, when we're talking about, there's some things that they're like, should we say it out loud or not? But you have to, because it's really important for both sides of the prosecution and the defense, to argue their own theories of this case.
But Loni, help me out with, I mean, you're totally right. There are some things as I was reading about it last night ahead of this, wondering, should we say that out loud? I mean, they're going into graphic detail about sex acts that, you know, you kind of are like, well, was that criminal? And maybe that's what both sides are arguing. And they're explaining in detail, I mean, uses of oils and explicit sex acts. What is the goal of the prosecution in being so detailed?
So the prosecution is saying that this was sex trafficking, that there was a criminal enterprise here for all of these people that were helping Sean Combs to fulfill his sexual desires, and this transportation of prostitution. So they have to talk about the actual acts. Now, there's one act that really got everybody's attention yesterday. Okay, I don't know if we're going to say it, but there was a male sex worker who testified. He's part of the prostitution charge, and he's talking about how he was paid to have sex with Cassie while Sean Combs watched. And there was one act that he said in detail about. Now, why did we have to talk about that? I don't know. Are we going to say it here on air?
Say it, Loni. Say it. Yeah.
Okay. So he talked about how at one point Sean Combs directed him to urinate on Cassie. Now, why did that detail have to come in? Because the prosecution is saying that there was force and coercion here, right? This was not consensual. This is not what she wanted to do. The defense is saying this was all consensual. These were consenting adults. It's a different lifestyle. It's an extreme sexual lifestyle, but that you can't criminalize, right? People can decide what they want to do in their own private lives. And so they're saying this was all consensual. This was a relationship between Cassie and Diddy that went on for over a decade, that she was there because she wanted to be there. So the prosecution is saying, no, we need to go into the real graphic details to say, this is not what she was consenting to. This is not what she wanted here. There were other things going on keeping her in that relationship.
Loni, if you look at a trial like this, it's definitely a chess match. And the opening moves were yesterday with the opening statements. And this kind of centers around a woman named Cassie Ventura, who we were all shown a video of yesterday. Again, unbelievably horrific video of her being terrifyingly beaten by Sean Puppy Combs. And what the prosecution is saying is, look at this man. And then they bring in Cassie. They brought in Israel Flores, one of the security guards at the hotel. The defense, it was very interesting, owned up to all this. And the prosecution is saying, look at this guy. And the defense said, yeah, look, he's a terrible human being. He did some horrible things. He is a deviant, especially when it comes to his sexual proclivities. But that doesn't make him a sex trafficker. And what do you think of their strategy of, we're going to own up to a lot of his deviant activities, but we're going to try and draw this line legally?
Yeah, very, very smart strategic move on the defense. And really they had to be able to have credibility in front of that jury, which is the most important thing. You have got that videotape. As soon as the judge said that's coming in front of the jury, they had to figure out, how are we going to deal with it? Because anyone who watches that, it just hits you in the gut to see a man beating a woman like that, and just the violence and the force that he was using. So they just said, okay, we own up to it. In fact, he already apologized for it. He is a domestic violence person. He has a bad temper. He gets angry. There was domestic violence, but he's not charged with domestic violence. And they even went so far as to say, if he was charged with domestic violence, we wouldn't even be here because he would have already admitted the guilt. He's being charged with other crimes that the prosecution can't prove. They're also going to go into the fact that they're arguing that it was a mutually abusive relationship between him and Cassie, so that this was a thing that went back and forth and she wasn't necessarily a victim in this case. But a very smart move, and I don't think they should shy away from saying, look, he really has rage issues, he's got a temper, but they're not proving the elements of the crimes charged, the sex trafficking, the criminal enterprise.
So much of this centers around Cassie, as Kris said. Stinger, they were together publicly for years, but obviously privately, they had this life no one knew about, and a lot of horrors in that. Cassie is going to take the stand. And what is the situation at this point? Because she had accused him a couple years ago publicly of everything. He had settled with her the next day, but now she's taking the stand. What is her role in all this? And who are the other key witnesses as well?
Okay, so Cassie Ventura is sort of the key witness for the prosecution, right? She did file a lawsuit against him a couple of years ago, which she settled right away. She is going to be able to sort of give the whole overview of all of the people that were involved and how long this went on for, because the prosecution is saying this went on for decades, right? And how his associates, his bodyguards, his assistants would also play into this. You know, that they would rent the hotel rooms for these freak-offs. They would get the car services, they'd pay for the damages, things like that. She was around for all of that. She was involved in some of that. In fact, there's going to be testimony that she and this other victim, Jane Doe, essentially, because she wants to use a pseudonym, she doesn't want a real name out there, that they at some points did help setting some of these up. But then they changed. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic in that, was it consensual because they were sometimes initiating it, helping it, also involved in it, and then sometimes they didn't want to be involved. But Cassie Ventura really is sort of going to give the overall view of the enterprise part of it, of the sex trafficking part of it. And that video is so important because the prosecution is saying That's the force that you're seeing there. That's the coercion that went into the freak offs here. They were not doing this willingly. They did not want to be involved in this.
Right. He might not be charged with violence, but the violence is part of, well, this is why it makes it coercion and this is how it was forced.
Exactly. That's right.
What happened to a report I saw that one of the witnesses had disappeared?
Yeah, witness number 3 kind of disappeared, and they don't think anything nefarious, that she just kind of disappeared and doesn't want to testify.
Yeah, exactly. These are hard cases. They're hard for the jury and the audience to hear, but they're very hard for the victims to come forward and talk about this stuff. It's very private. There's a lot of shame involved in it, sometimes guilt that they didn't get out earlier. And then there's also been allegations of fear of retaliation, even at this point. There's a reason why the judge said that Sean Combs should stay in jail this entire time, because he offered up a $50 million bond to get out, and the judge said, I'm worried about witness tampering. I'm worried about obstruction of justice. So we don't know why this third victim is not testifying at this point. We don't know if it was out of fear or just not wanting to have the public scrutiny. But at this point, they're not planning on having her testify. Now, she may end up showing up later, but right now we only know about Cassie Ventura and Jane as far as alleged victims.
Lonnie, just a few seconds left. Real quick, how long does this trial go? Is this going to go for a bit?
They're estimating 8 weeks. They're estimating that Cassie Ventura is going to take the rest of the week just for her testimony.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a while.
All right, Lonnie Coombs, thank you. Part of our Merit team. Appreciate you updating us on now day 2 of the Diddy trial. When we come back, a big week for the South Side of Chicago right after this.
Welcome back to Through the Drama, a hard-hitting segment in that last one, but we are going to cover those really breaking news type of stories in our world, in our field of entertainment and celebrity. And what's wild is that, you and I never interviewed Diddy personally, but he was, all over. It became this big question when all this came out of the Diddy tapes.
Yeah.
Will any celebrities be caught because he allegedly recorded hours and hours of these freak off parties that he had? And Loni just told us as she was leaving that no, those tapes, some of them at least do exist, and they will come out in trial.
And that Diddy didn't have them. Cassie Ventura actually has them. So I think this trial is going to be very explosive. I think there will be celebrities drawn into this. It's already been a zoo outside the courthouse there in New York. Hundreds of people gathered yesterday. Speaking of people gathering, big week last week at the Vatican. A bigger week, dare I say, for your hometown, Chicago. Lauren is a proud Chicagoan, is that right?
Yes.
Obviously, Pope Leo, the first American Pope, born and raised on the south side of Chicago. That's got to feel good, LZ.
We got a guy. You know that phrase, I got a guy?
Got a guy.
That's how this feels. I got a guy. And I know his Pope name is Pope Leo, but it's hard to ignore that his given name is Robert
Francis.
First of all, you and I were captivated by this. We were in New York hosting a charity gala for Experience Camps, the charity that we're involved with that helps grieving kids. But we stopped down and watched the breaking news of the first or of the Pope being revealed. And I could not believe, and this is why we're still talking about it, American Pope. First ever American Pope. This was huge to watch live.
And then we found out, obviously, from your hometown of Chicago. But what I really wanted to dive into, what I find interesting about this, and neither one of us are Catholic. There are billions around the world. But what I found interesting is this American Pope, when he walked out of the Vatican and was named Pope, he felt American, like his wave. Usually the Pope is this kind of...
You could tell from his wave?
He looked like he just has this normal...
throwing the hands.
Yeah, you know how they have the Pope wave where it's very,
throwing the hands.
Stiff, and this was just like a, hey guys. And it's interesting to me how an American being named, and I know he also was in Europe and South America and spoke beautiful Italian and Latin during the whole ordeal. Phenomenal, and congratulations. But it just humanized the whole role for me. It's like, oh, this is a guy that went to Villanova.
Yeah.
He has a math degree from Villanova. He grew up on the south side of Chicago. And the fact that it just kind of humanized the church and the actual role of Pope, I thought was a very interesting, tangible thing to
well,
take
it made
away.
me wonder, maybe the last Pope did that and we just didn't know it because he wasn't from here.
Maybe.
But for sure, it's a different time now where the person who could be the Pope like might have had a social media presence at one point, or, you know, people know him. They went to like high school with this guy here in America. They went to college with him, and the White Sox congratulated him because it turns out somebody found footage of our guy at the 2005 White Sox World Series, and they said, congratulations to the South Side's very own.
Yeah, this is a shot from Comiskey Park. And you're right. I remember that 05 World Series. It was the White Sox and the Astros, and Joe Buck they just took a cutaway, and somebody went back and found that cutaway.
How did they find that?
There's Pope Leo the 14th now. So it's just such a regular guy that's like, yeah, he went to Walmart. He went to a White Sox game. The internet has won. Let's put this other meme up that came up quickly. Duh, Pope. Obviously playing off the great Saturday Night Live skit where they kind of made fun and had fun with the legendary Bears coach, Mike Ditka.
The Bears.
And duh, Bears, duh, Pope. And so the fact that Chicago is embracing this, America is embracing it, I just think it's a cool thing. So congratulations, Chicago. A big win for the South Side.
You know, we were talking about being humble earlier. I'm not humble about this. I'm like, Chicago, yes. He's from Chi-Town, baby. Heck yes.
Our thanks to Lori Coombs for joining us today,
Lonnie Coombs, yes.
Lonnie Coombs, sorry, talking about the Diddy trial. Will you consider this a success today? Are we good?
This is a B+.
We're getting better. We're getting better. We're going to work on this, and we will continue to work on this show. And we're so grateful you joined us. You can join us each and every day, 12:30 Eastern Time, 11:30 Austin Time. You can see us every weekday on Dr. Phil's Merit TV or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. We'll do it again tomorrow because, LZ, we have a lot more drama to get through. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.